Dear friends, what if the man who marries the daughter secretly falls for the mother? This is not just a love triangle. It's a story of forbidden emotions, cultural boundaries, and heartbreaking betrayal. Arjun, a successful Indian-American engineer, returns home for love, but crosses a line no man should. In this gripping, emotional drama, you'll witness how one choice can destroy a family and how silence can sometimes scream the loudest. Stay with us, because what starts as an innocent wedding trip turns into a shocking journey of love, lust, and consequences that no one saw coming. Arjun Mehta was 34 years old and, by most definitions, a successful man. He lived in New Jersey, worked as a senior software engineer at a mid-sized tech company, drove a sleek gray Tesla, and paid off his apartment faster than any of his peers. His LinkedIn looked perfect. His Instagram, though rarely updated, showed just enough of the American dream to make distant relatives back in India feel proud. But inside, Arjun felt a hollow space, a kind of emotional distance that even his expensive mattress and warm coffee machine couldn't fill. It had been over 10 years since he left India. He hadn't been back, not even once. There was always an excuse. Work was busy. Flights were too long. Visa processing was complicated. But the real reason was harder to admit. He had grown afraid of going back. Afraid that the India in his memories had changed, or worse, that he had changed beyond recognition. Still, when he received the wedding invitation from his cousin Priyank, something shifted inside him. It was handwritten, sent by post, and carried a simple message. Come home, bye. We miss you. Maybe it was time. When Arjun landed in India, the blast of warm, dusty air that hit him outside the Nagpur airport felt like a slap and a welcome. He took a cab to Chhindwara, the small town in Madhya Pradesh, where he was born. The ride was bumpy, with endless stretches of farmland, cows crossing the road without warning, and dabas with chai boiling in huge metal pots. He felt a strange calm settle over him. When he arrived at his uncle's house, the entire family poured out to greet him. Kids he didn't recognize hugged his knees. Aunties pinched his cheeks. Neighbors peeked out from behind doorways. Airy Arjun Beta, you've become so fair and handsome. Look at you. Full American now, Han. He laughed politely, touched his elder's feet, and handed over the chocolates and perfumes he had brought from Newark Airport's duty-free shop. That night, during the pre-wedding celebration, he sat under fairy lights strung across the courtyard, sipping a cold soda and watching everyone dance to Bollywood hits. He felt like an outsider looking in, still part of the picture, but blurry at the edges. And then he saw her. She was arranging marigold garlands near the altar, her hands quick but graceful. She wore a simple yellow sari, her long braid tied with jasmine flowers. She looked up briefly, and their eyes met. Just for a second. Her name, he later learned, was Meera. She was only 21, studying to become a teacher at the local college. She lived just a few blocks away, with her widowed mother. She's a sweet girl, his cousin told him. Very quiet, very respectful. Everyone says she'll make a wonderful wife someday. Arjun nodded, but said nothing. Later that evening, as he passed by the kitchen, he found her washing metal plates in a corner, sleeves rolled up, humming a folk tune softly to herself. Can I help? He asked casually. She looked up, startled, then smiled politely. No, thank you. You're a guest. Her voice was soft, but confident. Arjun walked away, but her image stayed in his mind all night. He didn't know it yet, but that brief exchange was the beginning of something far more complicated than he could imagine. The following morning, Arjun awoke to the sounds of temple bells in the distance and birds chirping on the neem tree outside the window. The air was humid but refreshing, thick with the aroma of masala chai being prepared in the courtyard kitchen. He sat quietly, sipping his tea, letting the rhythm of village life soak into him. But his mind wasn't at peace. It kept drifting back to that yellow sari, that soft voice, that fleeting smile. Meera. He saw her again that afternoon. She was helping arrange seating for the haldi ceremony, carrying rolled-up carpets with the other girls. This time, he didn't hesitate. "Need a hand?" Arjun asked, stepping beside her. She glanced at him and gave a small, polite nod. "It's okay, I can manage," she said. "I know, but I'm not used to standing around watching people work." She smiled slightly. That was the second smile. It lingered just long enough to make his heart stir. Over the next few days, their conversations grew longer. He learned that she loved teaching children, that she had lost her father to illness when she was 13, and that her dream was to open a small school someday. She rarely talked about herself, but when she did, her words were thoughtful and sincere. Arjun found himself listening, truly listening, in a way he hadn't done with anyone in years. She didn't ask him about America, about his salary, or about his car. She asked about his life. What made him happy? What made him stay up at night? What he missed most about India? One evening, as the wedding festivities settled into a comfortable lull, Arjun was invited to Meera's home for a family tea gathering. It was a modest house. Whitewashed walls, clay tiles, a small garden filled with tulsi and marigold. That's when he met her mother, Rani. Rani was nothing like he expected. She was in her early 40s, but carried herself with poise and elegance that defied the simplicity of her surroundings. Her dark hair was streaked with hints of silver, pulled neatly into a bun. Her eyes, calm but sharp, seemed to read people faster than they could speak. "You must be Arjun," Rani said, welcoming him with a gentle nod. "We've heard much about you these past few days." "Only the good parts, I hope," he replied with a light smile. "We only speak of what we see," she said, handing him a cup of tea. "And so far, you've been very visible." There was a hint of mischief in her tone. Not flirtation, but something else, something worldly. Arjun found it oddly magnetic. He sat on the woven charpai across from her. Meera joined them with a plate of samosas. "So, how do you find our Chindwara after so many years?" Rani asked. "Peaceful. Familiar. A little slower than I remember," he said. "That's the charm of small towns. Life may be slow, but people notice everything." She said it without raising her voice, but the message was clear. That night, as he walked back to his uncle's house, Arjun couldn't stop thinking about the two women he had just left behind. Meera's quiet grace had drawn him in, but Rani's presence, it lingered in the air like sandalwood. He told himself it was harmless curiosity, a natural appreciation for a strong woman who had raised a daughter so well. But a seed had been planted, quietly, without warning, and deep down, he knew it was the kind of seed that could grow into something dangerous. It had been just over a week since Arjun returned to Chindwara, yet it already felt like a different kind of home, one he hadn't known he needed. Every morning started with chai in the courtyard, and every evening ended with long talks, laughter, and the warm glow of lanterns. But most of all, every day gave him one more excuse to see Meera, and he wasn't alone in noticing it. "You've been smiling a lot lately," his cousin Priyank teased. "Maybe Chindwara suits you better than Jersey." "Maybe," Arjun replied, though he knew exactly why he was smiling. One morning, after a walk with Meera around the edge of the local lake, watching buffaloes soak in the mud and boys playing cricket in the dust, Arjun made a decision. He would ask her to marry him. That evening, he visited Meera's home, wearing a crisp kurta and holding a box of sweets. Meera opened the door, surprised. "You didn't call," she said. "Some things shouldn't be scheduled," he replied, smiling. Rani was sitting in the living room, cutting vegetables. "Rani auntie," Arjun said, walking in respectfully. "Can I speak with you, both?" Rani looked up, immediately sensing something serious in his voice. She set the knife down. The three sat around the low wooden table. Arjun took a deep breath. I've been here for only a short time, but sometimes it doesn't take long to know when something feels right. Meera is kind, honest, and has a heart I never knew I was missing. I'd be honored if you'd consider letting me marry her." There was silence. Meera looked down, her cheeks turning pink. Rani stayed still, her eyes locked on Arjun. Not angry, not surprised, just unreadable. "She's young," Rani said slowly. "You live in a different world. Have you thought about what it would mean for her to leave everything behind?" "I have," Arjun replied, "and I'll do everything I can to help her feel safe, supported. I won't rush her, but I know what I want." Rani looked at Meera. The girl still hadn't spoken. "Meera?" Rani asked gently. "I trust him, Ma," she said softly. After a long pause, Rani nodded. "Then I'll trust your decision." Arjun exhaled. His heart thumped with excitement. The engagement was set for the following week, a simple family ceremony. There were no fireworks, no giant tent or band, just a few garlands, sweets, and a room full of blessings. But while everyone else celebrated, Arjun couldn't help but feel the weight of Rani's gaze. It wasn't disapproving. It wasn't jealous. But it lingered, longer than it should have. He noticed the way she looked at him when no one was watching. The way her hand brushed his when she passed him tea. The way her voice softened, just slightly when they spoke alone. And he didn't pull away. He told himself it was just mutual respect, that they both cared for Meera and wanted the best for her. But part of him, some buried part, felt something else. Something that made his chest tighten and his thoughts run wild. One afternoon, 2 days before he was scheduled to return to New Jersey, Rani invited him to the back garden to pick lemons for the pickle jars. The sun was low. The air was still. They stood under the lemon tree, close but not touching. "You've made her happy," Rani said. "She was always so quiet. She's laughing again. She's made me feel human again," Arjun replied. There was a silence between them. "You're a good man, Arjun," Rani said softly. "But sometimes even good men make choices they can't take back." She didn't explain what she meant, and he didn't ask. But when their hands reached for the same lemon and their fingers touched, neither of them moved away. Just for a moment. Just long enough for the storm to begin forming. After the quiet engagement ceremony in Chhindwara, Arjun flew back to New Jersey to begin the visa process for Meera. In the first few weeks apart, he and Meera exchanged texts daily. They video called at night, laughed over small talk, and dreamed of their life together in the US. But strangely, the person Arjun found himself messaging more and more was Rani. At first, the texts were practical. Documents, wedding photos, Meera's passport scans. Then came casual check-ins. "Did Meera eat today? The weather's cold here. Hope you're keeping warm. You always make the best masala chai." Rani responded politely at first, but the tone shifted, becoming warmer, softer, more familiar. Late one night, after a long workday, Arjun texted, "I miss the peace of your backyard. The way you always knew what to say." Rani took hours to reply, but when she did, it simply said, "Some silences are louder than words, Arjun." From that moment, the boundary between mother-in-law and son-in-law began to blur, and neither of them stopped it. About 8 months later, Meera's visa was approved. Arjun flew to India to bring her to New Jersey. Their wedding was quiet, no lavish decorations, just close family and a few smiles, some of which felt forced. Meera was excited, nervous, and grateful. She hugged her mother tightly at the airport, whispering, "I'll call every day, Ma. Come visit soon." Rani nodded, holding back tears, but her eyes lingered on Arjun for just a second too long. Settling into life in America wasn't easy for Meera. She missed her language, her mother's cooking, and the noisy comfort of village life. Arjun tried his best, taking her to Indian grocery stores, buying her a small temple for the living room, even cooking dal, badly, on weekends. But Meera often seemed distracted and homesick. She struggled with English, felt lonely during Arjun's long work hours, and found it hard to connect with people. One night, while lying next to her, Arjun asked gently, "Are you okay, Meera?" I don't feel like I belong here yet," she whispered. "Maybe Ma could come visit, just for a few months?" Arjun didn't hesitate. A few months later, Rani arrived in New Jersey. She brought spices, homemade sweets, and a different energy to the house, one that made it feel alive again. The apartment was warmer. Meals were better. Meera smiled more. And Arjun felt something he couldn't explain. One rainy evening, Meera was attending an ESL class downtown. Arjun and Rani stayed home. They cooked together, quietly, comfortably. "You remembered the extra cumin," Rani said, surprised. "You taught me well," Arjun smiled. After dinner, they sat on the small balcony, watching the rain. Neither spoke. The silence between them wasn't awkward anymore. It was familiar. Rani turned to him suddenly. "Do you ever regret it?" "Regret what?" "Choosing Meera." Arjun looked at her, startled. "No. I care about her deeply." Rani didn't respond. She just looked out at the streetlights, her expression unreadable. Later that night, after Meera had returned and gone to bed, Arjun passed by the kitchen. Rani was still awake, sipping tea. She handed him a cup, her fingers brushing his. Neither of them pulled away. They stood there in silence. Too long, and in that moment, something unspoken between them became real, too real. They had crossed a line the moment Rani stepped foot into the apartment. They just hadn't admitted it yet. The air inside Arjun's apartment began to change. On the surface, everything looked normal. Meera had started adjusting to life in America. She enrolled in English classes, learned to take the bus, and even started video calling her college friends from India. Her laughter slowly returned. But under the surface, tension quietly bloomed. It wasn't the tension of arguments or cold silence. It was subtler, an awkward pause when Arjun and Rani passed each other in the kitchen, a glance that lasted a beat too long, a quiet breath when their hands accidentally touched. Meera didn't notice at first, but Arjun did. He became hyper-aware of Rani's presence. Her scent lingered in the hallway after she walked by. Her bangles clinked softly when she poured tea, a sound he began associating with late-night temptation. He tried to ignore it, told himself it was wrong, repeated in his mind, "She's Meera's mother. She's your mother-in-law." But one night, that voice in his head went silent. It was a Sunday evening. Meera had gone to visit a friend for dinner. Rani was home, reading quietly on the couch, dressed in a soft cotton sari, her hair down for once. Arjun came out of his room and paused. "You're not tired?" he asked. "I don't sleep early anymore," she replied, not looking up. "Age does that." He sat beside her, unsure why. Neither of them spoke for a while. Then, softly, "You should have had a life of your own," Arjun said. "Not just raising Meera. Not just surviving." "Some women don't get that choice," Rani replied, her voice barely a whisper. She turned her head to him, slowly. "But some nights," she continued, "we remember what it felt like to be seen." Their eyes locked. No words followed. Just a kiss, soft, hesitant, then desperate. A secret. A mistake. A moment they couldn't undo. That night, they crossed a line with no return. What began as warmth became physical. What had been unsaid now existed in flesh and guilt. When Meera returned home an hour later, she found both Arjun and Rani in the living room, calm, polite, distant, just as they always appeared. But she didn't know. Her husband had just betrayed her, and her mother, her only family, had become part of the betrayal. For the next few weeks, life inside the apartment settled into a strange rhythm. Breakfast, chai, work, silence, smiles, pretending. But Meera started noticing things. At first, It was small. Her mother and Arjun would fall silent when she entered the room. Their phones were always face down on the table. One evening, she found Rani folding Arjun's laundry, something he normally did himself. "Why are you doing that, Ma?" Meera asked, confused. "He was busy." "I thought I'd help," Rani replied, quickly looking away. That answer didn't sit right. Then came the late-night whispers. Meera once woke up thirsty and stepped out of the bedroom quietly. From the hallway, she saw the glow of the kitchen light and two silhouettes. Her mother, her husband, talking softly, too softly. As she stepped closer, the whispers stopped. "Meera?" Arjun said, startled. "You're up." "Just thirsty," she said slowly, glancing at Rani, who was already turning off the light. No one spoke as she poured her glass of water. But silence spoke the loudest. Days later, the final crack came. Meera borrowed her mother's phone to call a cousin back in India. Rani was in the shower. The phone was unlocked. As Meera scrolled through contacts, a message notification popped up on WhatsApp. From Arjun. The preview read, "I can still feel you in my arms." Her heart stopped. She opened the thread. There they were, weeks of messages. Flirty, intimate, regretful, and worst of all, real. "Last night was a mistake, but I can't lie, it felt like I was alive again. We need to stop." "I don't know if I can." Meera dropped the phone. She couldn't breathe. She waited in silence until Rani came out of the bathroom. Arjun entered the room moments later, towel over his shoulder, humming to himself. Meera stood in the center of the living room, holding the phone out toward them. "Is this a mistake too?" she asked, her voice shaking. The air went still. Rani froze. Arjun turned pale. "Meera," Rani began, but the words died in her throat. "Don't," Meera whispered. "Don't speak." Tears streamed down her face, not just from heartbreak, but from betrayal. By the two people she trusted most in the world. That night, she packed a suitcase and left. She didn't go to a friend's. She didn't go to a hotel. She just left, walking aimlessly into the cold night of New Jersey, the taste of betrayal thicker than the winter air. And Arjun? He stood by the window, watching her disappear. Not chasing, because he knew it was over. The morning after Meera left, the apartment felt like a tomb. Her absence was everywhere, on the empty side of the bed, in the untouched chai cups, in the silence that now screamed through the hallway. Rani sat alone in the living room, her suitcase by her feet. Her eyes were red from crying, but she didn't speak. She hadn't spoken since Meera left. Arjun paced back and forth, sleepless, stunned, hollow. "What do we do now?" he asked, more to himself than to Rani. She looked up at him slowly. "We destroyed her," she whispered. "You destroyed her future. I destroyed my daughter." The shame in her voice was heavy, final. By the end of the day, Meera's lawyer had already emailed divorce papers. She didn't call. She didn't ask for explanations. She didn't want to hear their voices ever again. A week later, Rani booked a flight back to India. She didn't say goodbye. Her parting words to Arjun, just before stepping into the taxi, were, "We mistook loneliness for love." Don't ever confuse the two again. Then she was gone. Now Arjun was alone. Truly alone. Days passed in a blur. He went to work. He came home. He ate in silence. Slept badly. Dreamed worse. The couch where he once kissed Rani felt like poison. The balcony where they had laughed in the rain now stood cold and empty. Every part of the apartment held a memory, and every memory was soaked in regret. He tried messaging Meera once. Just one line. "I'm sorry. I don't expect forgiveness." She never replied. And maybe she never would. One evening, Arjun stood in front of the mirror. He didn't recognize the man staring back. This wasn't the brilliant engineer from New Jersey. This wasn't the man who once wanted to build a life with a kind-hearted girl from Chindwara. This was someone else, someone who had burned love for lust and traded trust for desire. And now he had nothing left but silence. 1 year passed. The seasons in New Jersey changed, but Arjun's life remained frozen in the same cold, gray rhythm. Days turned into months, but the pain never truly left. He no longer checked Meera's social media. He deleted Rani's number. He stopped attending gatherings and avoided questions from friends. People around him moved on. He did not. Then, without telling anyone, Arjun booked a flight to India. He didn't know what he was searching for. Closure, maybe? Redemption. Or just the weight of breathing air that didn't remind him of everything he had lost. He arrived in Chhindwara quietly. No family knew. No one greeted him at the station. The town had changed a little, but it still smelled the same: dust, mango trees, incense. It was a place that held his beginning. And his deepest mistake. On his second morning back, he visited the temple by the old lake. A quiet place, peaceful, timeless. And there, dressed in a plain white salwar, handing out sweets to local children, was Meera. She looked older, calmer. Not broken, not angry, just different. Like someone who had walked through fire and learned how to carry the scars with grace. She saw him. Their eyes met. For a moment, time paused. Arjun walked slowly toward her. He didn't smile. He didn't expect hers. "Hi," he said quietly. Meera nodded once. Her face gave nothing away. "You look well," he said. "I am," she replied. "You?" "Still learning how to be," he said truthfully. There was a long silence between them, filled with all the things they would never say. Then, softly, "I don't hate you, Arjun," Meera said. "But I also don't forgive you. Not because I can't, but because I don't need to." He nodded. "I understand," he whispered. She turned back to the children, who were waiting with bright eyes and empty hands. She gave him a gentle, almost motherly smile. "Take care of yourself," she said. And then she walked away. Arjun stood there for a long time, watching her disappear into the morning sun. He didn't chase her. He didn't cry. He simply bowed his head and let the silence say what words could not. Some mistakes leave bruises. Others leave scars. But the deepest ones, those born from betrayal, leave echoes. And for Arjun, that echo would follow him for the rest of his life. Not as punishment, but as memory. Dear friends, this story may seem rare, but in the shadows of real life, it happens more often than we think. In India and across the world, broken boundaries, emotional loneliness, and betrayal can tear families apart. The one who suffered most here was the daughter, caught between love, trust, and unbearable pain. But behind the heartbreak lies a powerful message. Sometimes, what feels right in a moment can lead to a lifetime of regret. This is more than a love story. It's a reminder that choices define us, and that some lines, once crossed, can never be erased.